Two hands. Why use one weapon when you can use two? Dual wielding, akimbo. A trend started by movies to make fun of real-life guns for having recoil, turned into a game mechanic present throughout various FPS games in history. Today, I'm going to have a look at several of these games and how they implement this flat-out bonkers mechanic. Dusk is a polyagonal retro shooter with a full arsenal of unique weapons, varied enemies, and great level design that came out in 2018. Hey, you probably know that if you're watching this video. The weapon designs are fantastic, ranging from the super punchy super shotgun to the creative and complex crossbow. Each weapon covers its own niche in a game with lots of interesting combat scenarios across many varied environments. But that's not why we're here today. We're here for the... Right from the first room, or later if you miss this painfully obvious secret, you are given a single pistol, but not for long. It's shortly joined by its buddy in the second room, or later if you miss this painfully obvious secret.
Today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 video game secrets that developers didn't want found. Today 10 developers will be found, despite players' best efforts to keep them hidden.
When it comes to functionality, the difference between one and two pistols is clear. You shoot considerably faster with two because the rhythm of the shots increases in tempo. This simple change makes a huge difference to the game feel, because firing both pistols by just holding down the shoot button is incredibly satisfying, and the sound design only helps this. Additionally, instead of reloading in Dusk, you get one of these with each weapon, and this is no different with the akimbo pistols. Unfortunately though, the dual pistols get completely outclassed by the assault rifle in terms of damage and firepower, and even though you get much more pistol ammo throughout the campaign, I don't really find myself using the dual arms that often. That can't be said, however, for the other instance of dual wielding in the game, the shotguns. The dual shotguns, much more satisfying and punchy than the pistols, were one of my most used weapons throughout the game, even when I had the super shotgun. This is because it's far faster than the super shotgun, and much easier to tear through large hordes of enemies while bee-hopping around like a rabbit on steroids. It's where most of the fun lies in Dusk. Combat after combat of non-stop action, backed up by awesome weapon, level, and enemy design. Overall, this implementation of dual wielding is solid all round. The weapons are well crafted and feel even better to dual wield, and the game truly benefits from having the option to use two weapons at once. REAVER is a game I didn't think I would like. To me, it looked a bit too much like an Overkill clone to give it any merit, but boy was I wrong. REAVER is like if you took fighting game inputs and shoved them straight into a fast and aggressive movement FPS. Each gun has about 5 combos you can pull off with it by ordering certain inputs: right click, left click and punch. Holding down right click and releasing it with the blue pistol gives you a spam fire move, but if you left click instead of releasing, you get a bouncing piercing shot. Each combo ability is completely original, which makes each weapon feel like an entire arsenal, and the enemy design complements the weapons quite well. The enemies often spawn in crowds, so they are vulnerable to multi-shot or explosive AoE attacks, but larger health enemies are easier to headshot with the piercing shot, for example. Now, this game has quite an innovative use of dual wielding, which is why I'm including it in this video. REAVER has a machine gun as its third weapon, which doubles up for a limited time as its right-click ability. Of course, firing 2 automatic rifles at once is no problem for our nameless protagonist, but even though he's keeping himself from being blown to shreds, the amount of firepower actually has enough recoil to keep you afloat, jetpack joyride style. This means the weapon ability doubles up as a semi-movement ability, which can actually come in useful in some areas. Additionally, pressing the switch weapon button actually only swaps the second of the 2 guns into the secondary rifle, allowing you to shoot both at once. Overall, this implementation of dual wielding brings a lot to the table. It's in the game to serve a creative mechanical purpose, which sets the bar high for other uses of the cliché. It's a part of an interesting mechanic that should definitely be expanded on in some way, by this game when it fully releases, or just in general. Alright, here's where the video starts to go a bit off the rails and I bring in a game from left field. Killer7 is a PS2 game made in 2005. It's a third-person shooter with big quotation marks. It's a very dated game, even by today's standards, but even in 2005, when it came out, people complained about the unconventional control scheme. This is because the game has fixed camera angles, Resident Evil style, and the player is on rails because you just hold the X button to go forward and triangle if you want to turn around. You get no more degrees of freedom than that. The shooting comes in when you hold down R1 on the controller and, similar to old Metal Gear games, the player is shown a first-person perspective and a gun to fire with. Enemies can be scanned to be revealed with L1 and then locked on with triangle to shoot at. This was quite different even from Metal Gear Solid 2, a game that came out 4 years prior which requires similar perspectives and combat interactions but handles controls very differently. MGS2 allows you to walk around freely and shoot even without going into first person, among other things. Anyway, today we're looking at one of the many colourful characters in Killer7, Con Smith. Con wields the dual pistols known as Disarm in reference to the Smashing Pumpkins song of the same name. These automatic pistols are some of the fastest firing weapons in the game, and you're able to hold down the button while firing to decimate enemies quickly. Con is even able to reload quickly using his feet with his super speed, the sound design for which is very satisfying. Just listen to the... While it's a little tricky to hit weak spots with his guns, the sheer speed and therefore damage output they provide is invaluable in dealing with Heaven's Smile. And hey, let's not forget about Master Smith, just an absolute unit of a man walking around with a set of dual grenade launchers in his hands. Masked weapons are a little more niche than Con's, but are still useful in taking out hordes of Heaven's Smile. The power behind the dual nature of masked weapons does not go unnoticed by the developer, and the aggressive recoil really sells the impact of a double grenade explosion, along with the break action two-handed reload. Overall, this implementation of dual wielding is fairly standard, but the quality of expression the weapons allow the characters in the game is not to go underappreciated. Every member of Killer7, even those without a second firearm, is uniquely represented by their weapon of choice in a manner I have not seen in many other places in media. I know I've fallen back on the footage interrupts or completes my sentence bit a lot in this video, but Turbo Overkill is about what you'd expect from that title. A lightning-fast FPS game with a varied arsenal of weapons, wide variety of movement options, and a whole lot of this. Yeah, that's right, the main character has a chainsaw leg, and it rips through enemies like butter when you slide. The game has a beautiful semi-retro, semi-modern style to it, reminiscent of something like a medieval. The main draw of the game is much like Doom Eternal. Fast-paced arena battles where you're encouraged to experiment with different weapons, weapon swapping, and other abilities such as the missiles. The game has dual wielding built into its DNA, with two weapons of the arsenal having guns akimbo, the pistols and the machine guns. First off, the pistols. Right from the get-go you're handed these satisfying laser blasters that are very fun to fire. Similar to Dusk, the dual wielding allows you to fire twice as fast by just holding down the fire button. In the following room, you are introduced to an interesting mechanic. You can hold down right-click with the pistols to initiate a lock-on fire mode, and release to fire off all the shots in one go. The ability has this nice animation to it where your character spins the left gun around his finger, while the right one shakes and vibrates from all the charge you're building up, or something. Anyway, just 2 rooms later you are introduced to the double machine guns, which are also great. You don't get as much ammo for them as you do for the pistols, but when you do switch to them you can just tear through hordes of enemies by holding down the fire button. What does disappoint a little though is the machine gun's alternate ability, which is to drop one of them and get a more accurate single machine gun. This is cringe! Overall, I think Turbo Overkill's dual wielding is core to its gameplay and aesthetic, and rightfully so. The akimbo in the game feels naturally embedded, strong, and satisfying to use. To conclude, Dual wielding has been a part of video games for decades now, but the feature usually goes underappreciated because it's sort of a background element in many games. Modern games do seem to put a lot more effort into their weapon arsenals, including akimbo guns they add into the game. It's high time they got some appreciation for how cool they are. Thanks for watching. I've linked all the games mentioned in the description, along with any music or other things that I used. Comment letting me know your favourite implementation of dual wielding.